guess what? Chris Hayes brought on the now resigned head of the Disinformation Governance Board, Nina Jankowicz. And he's feeling very sorry for all the abuse she took. By the way, the irony is that this Disinformation Governance Board, they disbanded or they paused it because there was so much disinformation about this Disinformation Governance Board out there that was being spread that it gave it a bad reputation. So they had to. So that kind of goes against the whole point of the. Anyway, here she is with Chris Hayes, and this is a special treat for you, Glenn. Here we go.
I have watched this happen multiple times in my public life career. Van Jones, when he was at a position in the White House, who was run out of office because he'd signed some petition, and Shirley Sherrod, who was a officer of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who said something wildly taken out of context. Like, what was the experience of being the focal point?
Again, I don't think you can compare those things together. I don't think what happened to Shirley Sherrod or Van Jones is equivalent to what happened to this authoritarian with a track record of spreading disinformation.
Of this sort of like massive frenzy, like over the last few weeks.
Well, it was really overwhelming, Chris. I mean, frankly, I have prided myself over my career of being a really nuanced, reasonable person. Again, as I said, I've briefed and advised both Republicans and Democrats. I admire some of the steps that the Trump administration even took to combat disinformation, including Senator Rob Portman and his bills against deepfakes and, funding the Global Engagement Center at the State Department. So to say that I'm just a partisan actor was wildly out of context. And then beyond that,
yes, to say I'm just a partisan actor was wildly out of context because partisan implies some kind of principles. I'm a conniving simp who would do anything to protect establishment power. It's called nuance, Chris. Okay, here we go.
It wasn't just, these mischaracterizations of my work, but it was death threats against my family. Over the last 3 weeks, I have maybe had 1 or 2 days I didn't report a violent threat, something like, we're coming for you and your family. You and your family should be sent to Russia to be killed. Encouragement of me to commit suicide. All of those have been forwarded to the Department of Homeland Security's security services. And, that's not something.
So oh my God, someone on social media said we're coming for your family and you and your family should be sent to Russia to be killed, and they encouraged you to commit suicide, and you reported it every day. And then what? Did they ask you to maybe look up what the word threat means and stop bothering them? Did that happen? It's also, I'm not buying, by the way, the I'm coming for your family shit. Like 99% of the country assumed you were a single cat lady. Nobody thought you had a family. Hey, what was it like when everybody hated your shitty ideas and job? Chris Hayes is a hell of an interviewer, isn't he? Here we go.
That is American. That is not how we should be acting when we have disagreements about policy in this country. I think we need to learn how to be adults in the room. And I don't have time for that childishness. I'm not going to let it silence me.
So she's calling those death threats childlessness. I don't have time for that childishness. Then why are you bringing it up? Why are you mentioning how horrible it is? Why are you reporting it to the Department of Homeland Security if you don't have... Anyway, she can't even keep her lies straight in this interview. Okay, here we go.
Go forward and continue building awareness about this threat in the future.
All right, Nina Jankowicz, I'm very sorry that happened to you, really. And thank you for taking some time tonight. I really appreciate it.
That's Chris's concerned I'm pro-women look. That's his face, right? That's his, I'm really sorry that happened to a lady. All right, anyway, Glenn, do you want to comment on that at all?
Oh, fuck yes, I do. First of all, that by far my favorite part of that exchange is when Chris put on his like earnest, chivalrous look at thee, and he like adopted that like gravely concern for the vulnerable woman, the like liberal compassion voice. And he's like, I'm so sorry this has happened to you. What the fuck has happened to her? Like getting tweets saying, hey, you should go to Russia and like kill yourself, and I'm gonna come and make sure you get your just desserts. Like that's something that happens to me every day in like a 20-minute span on Twitter. I don't fucking report it to Homeland Security when that happens. It's just like anonymous idiots on Twitter like sounding off. Is it any wonder that she's best friends with Taylor Lorenz, like constantly making herself the victim? This was a Homeland Security official. She was going to be a high official.
Oh, he's freezing.
Force, ever invented in all of history. And she's supposed to be like the marginalized victim because she was going to like seize government power inside Homeland Security to decree what is and isn't disinformation and monitor the speech and the political activities of citizens. And now she's the victim to whom you have to express your like solidarity and for whom you extend your pity and concern because she got a couple of like totally banal and standard tweets from anonymous people on Twitter. You know, she went on CBS later that day and she said that not only was criticizing this disinformation board and her itself disinformation, she said it was endangering national security to do so because this disinformation board and she were so important. They were going to like protect the American border and protect the homeland, that to malign this work, meaning to criticize the government, basically makes you a traitor. You're like, and you remember from the 2002 Karl Rove, Dick Cheney years, like anyone who criticized the government or questioned the government and you were helping the terrorists and were a threat to national. That's exactly what has been rejuvenated here. And of course, Chris Hayes, like on his knees and simping for a Homeland Security official, never bothered to mention, hey, like, don't people actually have the right position that the ACLU, even in the era of its like completely partisan posture, said was kind of disturbing? Like, is that really an inappropriate thing for people to do? And I'd also like to know what specific disinformation has been spread about her. Like, the only one she cited is that she was a partisan. And her proof of that is that she worked with, they like love Liz Cheney, they love Adam Kinzinger, they like right now are working with Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham, who are supporting Biden's war package. That doesn't mean you're not a partisan. How about when she tweeted in 2016 in the middle of the woman, if you say she's a partisan, you're guilty of spreading disinformation, probably should be reported to Homeland Security. She tweeted, quote, maybe Hillary Clinton's most important point so far, quote, a real Donald Trump presidency would embolden ISIS. Hashtag, I'm with her. Nothing partisan about that. I'm with her. Hillary Clinton's most important point, Donald Trump would help ISIS. She also, in 2020, endorsed the CIA disinformation. She wrote, quote, back on the, quote, laptop from hell, apparently, that believed the laptop is a Russian influence op. So a year ago, she was spreading disinformation to help the Democrats win. She has she's basically like a resistance cartoon, like a caricature of a liberal idiot who's now running all over the media, claiming that she's the victim again because of mean tweets, while Julian Assange rots in a prison that the British press calls the British Guantanamo, and journalists are being murdered in Ukraine, and like real journalists are being threatened or actually prosecuted, for whom we cry and shed tears the way Chrissy Hayes was doing because she got some mean tweets and he's like practically offering her some therapeutic hug. These are the kinds of people. I mean, she's like the classic insane liberal cartoon, and they wanted to put her in charge of the Homeland Security Disinformation Board. But I think what has happened is something that is worth noting. This is the final thing I'll say before I finally get rid of you, is the fact that she's such a ridiculous figure, like she's such a laughable kind of joke, like sort of a classic Karen, I'm going to call the Homeland Security manager on you if you criticize me on Twitter. It's kind of distracted from the gravity of how dangerous this is, because they're saying Homeland Security is that we're pausing this program. They're not saying they did anything wrong. They're saying our messaging was wrong. Our propaganda wasn't good. So we're pausing it to go back to the drawing board to re-propagandize you about what we're doing. But they're also saying there are numerous other programs already underway that this board was supposed to coordinate, where Homeland Security is, quote unquote, monitoring and combating disinformation. Why should the US government be involved at all in determining what is truth and falsity, in designating things that are disinformation? As Rand Paul said, and amazingly, we can only hear something like this from Rand Paul. Not a single Democrat or member of the squad or Bernie would ever say anything like this. The most disinformation has come from the US government itself. And he cited examples like the Gulf of Tonkin lie that led to the Vietnam War, the Pentagon Papers that Daniel Ellsberg leaked that revealed lying on the part of the Nixon administration about the Vietnam War, Iraqi WMDs. That's what we need Rand Paul to say that, because no Democrat would, because the Democrats worship the U.S. security state. There you see Chrissy Hayes acting like Oprah, holding the hand of this woman who is about to be a Homeland Security official and not criticizing or challenging her in any way. Liberals love the security state. So now we need Rand Paul to point out the truth, which is that the government is not here to protect us from disinformation. The government is here to spread disinformation. That's
exactly right. Hey, I'm on tour. Come see me in Irvine, California, Las Vegas, Indianapolis, Salt Lake City, Washington. Washington? You mean Washington State?
Yes.
Yes. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all those tickets.